¿Alguna pregunta de la audiencia? Bien. Yo si no, quería hacer una primera pregunta a Julián, y es que lo que sí es cierto, y ha salido poco a la percepción, pero especialmente en prevención primaria, las guías ahora repiten recomendaciones basadas en estudios hechos hace aproximadamente unos ahora 8 o 10 años. Y la impresión que se tiene, o que se puede tener, o a lo mejor no, es que la población está cambiando un poco. Han cambiado un poco los pacientes, han cambiado un poco los tratamientos, y uno un poco tiene algo la impresión de que probablemente las cifras reales en el momento actual no sean exactamente las mismas. Entonces, mi pregunta es si estas guías siguen siendo válidas, si habría que hacer de nuevo estudios en la población actual. ¿Cómo lo ves tú esto?
Hombre, yo veo que, claro, tienes razón, porque de hecho las guías son criticables. Ahora mismo tenemos 2 guías en Europa, puede que haya más, pero las guías NICE y las guías de la Sociedad Europea de Cardiología no son iguales, como todos sabéis. Las guías NICE son unas guías más restrictivas, son unas guías de mínimos con las que yo creo que es muy difícil estar en desacuerdo. Muy difícil estar en desacuerdo. Si tú tienes dinero y tienes medios suficientes, está claro que las guías europeas tienen una serie de indicaciones que están refrendadas hasta donde están refrendadas científicamente. Son discutibles. Y hay personalidades de las arritmias, por ejemplo, en España, donde son capaces de discutir algunas de las indicaciones actuales de las guías clínicas de la Sociedad Europea de Cardiología. Pero yo creo que las guías NICE son guías de mínimos, ¿no? Entonces, claro, las guías, el problema es que lo ideal sería que estuvieran continuamente actualizadas, pero eso es inviable, eso es imposible. Cada vez que se hace un estudio con desfibriladores o con resincronizadores, etcétera, el despliegue de medios que se necesita es bárbaro. Quizás, y yo espero, la investigación pueda pasar otra vez a organismos públicos y no depender únicamente de las compañías. Sabéis que en Estados Unidos inicialmente la mayor parte de las investigaciones estaban en empresas públicas de salud, luego han sido las compañías privadas y están intentando recuperar la investigación. Ahora, con los medios técnicos, yo espero que haya una especie de investigación estilo Wikipedia en la Sociedad Europea, plataformas de comunicación que permitan tener registros de buena calidad y que nos digan exactamente qué es lo que estamos haciendo y se puedan modificar un poco las guías clínicas, ¿no? Entonces, resumiendo, yo apoyo las guías NICE, creo que las guías europeas pueden ser criticables en algunos aspectos, pero no me olvido del problema fundamental, es que incluso hay muchos pacientes, seguro en España, que cumplen los criterios de las guías NICE y no nos llegan. Esos son los que me preocupan.
Julian, if I correctly understood or followed your presentation, your questionnaire was addressed to a member of the arrhythmia group, right? So have you done the same for cardiologists or general medicine practitioners?
No, I would like to do that, but I think it's a good idea.
The key issue there. I think that what they do think about the therapy that we implant, because I think everyone is willing to implant once they get the patients, but the problem we have here, not only Spain, but in many others, is really the referral. So the referral is the biggest obstacle to the proper selection of the patients and the proper implantation number.
I think that is a very good point, and I believe that we need to transmit to the rest of the physicians our thinking about the efficacy of the defibrillator, because I am convinced that they don't understand or don't believe, and this is an important part of the problem. And we as the Spanish Arrhythmic Association, I think that we have this kind of things to do, because sometimes we are only thinking about arrhythmologists, and all the arrhythmologists understand perfectly the guidelines and can criticize, okay, but they understand and the majority accept the guidelines. But when you try to transmit this to the general physicians, this is another problem.
The other question is about ICD versus CRTD. I don't know what is the feeling of the other people here on the panel, so whether we should only hit ICD or probably say, because that probably the acceptance of CRTD, which also means primary prevention in many cases, may be higher, so to go for CRTD rather than for ICD in the public awareness or in the presentation of a therapy.
Well, everybody can answer that, but my opinion is that CRT is a good marker of the rate of CRT implantations is a good marker of the quality of the medicine. Only CRT. So because of that, I saw the data coming from United Kingdom, for example. The proportion of CRT pacemakers is higher as compared with our proportion. Because to implant a CRT, you need the knowledge, of course, that you believe in the efficacy of the technique, but you need the skilledness and make the effort, and at the end, it's cheap. It's cheaper as compared with CRT defibrillators. So I think it's a good marker of quality of cardiology, in my opinion.
Let me make a last question to you. I agree in the concept that the number of procedures for center is a measure of efficiency, but you compare Spain with other European countries, and probably you look, as a general, in all Spanish hospitals, the number of procedures, ablations, ICT implants, is lower. And probably this is due to our system that perhaps is different. Our public hospitals, probably they close earlier or thing, but all the labs have a lower rate of procedures by center. So it is difficult to use the same threshold for all Europe, because if you apply this, probably we had to close half of the centers in Spain. So how to compare this between different countries in Europe?
Well, this is a good point. I would like to give you a different example of France. Geographically speaking, is the same one. They have the same geographic challenges, but certainly has a much higher number of ablation done per million inhabitants. Italy, compared to Spain, I think our healthcare system, the Italian one and the Spanish one, is very similar, because you have a very, say, socialistic system where everybody can get everything, which is, and paying, I would say, from taxes or from taxation rather than from own pockets or from insurance company. And still, you see the huge difference. So Germany, it is probably maybe a different reality, but I think that is mostly is related to, on one side, how present the national working groups have been in the country, how vocal they have been in the country, but also how much, obviously, the DRG system has motivated and has changed. Because in Italy, the huge increase in the number of implantation, the ablation, and so far and so on, has been related to the DRG introduction. As soon as the hospital understood that by doing electrophysiology, you can make money out of these, then suddenly the situation changed. So meaning that the hospital was requiring and was creating a very efficient referral system. So this was really the key around that one. And indeed, in Switzerland, where we have the introduction of referral system, of DRG, is the same situation. So we have an explosion because the hospital now is advocating and is promoting the therapy for you instead that you are going to promote the therapy. And this was in Germany, it was the same. In the Nordic country, it's the same. So, and this is also a political decision at the end, where you want to bring your money.
Okay, thank you. I think that this is very interesting, but we have to stop here. Gracias a todos por haber estado aquí, a los ponentes.